Hello, this is Julian Lage, and I wanted to talk today about a concept that I'm very curious about, and I'm frankly uncertain how it works or if it applies to everyone, but I'll throw it out there, see what you think. Growing up, I played a lot of, I actually started on a Stratocaster, and then my father played a Telecaster, and I was always kind of wanting that. But as I started playing professionally, as a teenager, I was playing jazz guitars, archtop guitars, ES-175 style guitars, and often those instruments push us towards the higher register. The low end can sometimes be a little muddled. It can feel a little bassy, and I often got the advice from people that, stay away from the low strings when you're soloing because you're just kind of in the way of the bass player. Or you're in the way of the piano player if you're playing with a piano player. And so I kind of believed that for a long time. Fast forward many years, I returned to where I started playing solid body guitars, and here I am with a Telecaster style guitar. And I find that with this instrument, the low end is actually very beautiful. It's very sweet. It's not overpowering. It doesn't have the same feedback issues, and it's not a big open box that can, feedback in the same way. So I decided to rethink this whole concept of range. Here I was spending most of my life sequestered from maybe the seventh fret up on the high B and E strings. And now I've got all this guitar I've been ignoring. So I'd like to just demonstrate a little bit of what I've been working on thinking about with regard to range and register on the guitar. For our purposes, we'll use a song called Lookbook. It's a tune of mine from our most recent record, Modern Lore, and it's a blues. It's a 16-bar blues in the key of B. I want to try to give myself a challenge, and the challenge is this. I'm going to try to take let's say I'll take one chorus of solo on this tune, and I'm going to limit myself to soloing only on, let's say, the bottom four strings, so the E, A, D, and G. And there'll be one exception. If I really want it, I'm going to add one high note on the E string, but I'm going to use it as an effect, not as where I live, but as an effect. So I'll show. Let's just see how it goes. Lookbook. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's kind of the unusual architecture of the solo. But what I liked about it was by limiting myself to these low strings and only using one note on the high E, it did feel like I had these new orchestrational parameters. And that's something I think about a lot. If I were to expand this as an exercise, I would say, well, maybe I'll go 3 choruses and never go above those strings. And then when I do, it has to be a double stop, or maybe I'll only hit the B string and never go to the high E until the end of the solo when I want there to be a big climax. All of this is to kind of point out that you have a choice, Alternatively, what I think we get stuck in, I certainly do, is a type of soloing where you're living in the high register the whole time. And I'll show you what that looks like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So objectively, there's nothing wrong with playing that way. The only thing is I find myself having to trying to play weirder chords and change the vocabulary to keep it interesting because I'm already maxed out in terms of register. This leads me to the kind of main point of this, which is that this that's high. That's high, and my speaking voice tends to be higher. And yet that's still way above my range. If I'm speaking and I'm kind of around here, this is kind of my normal. So one way to kind of get yourself in the flow of practicing this is find out where you talk. Find whatever the kind of center point of your speaking voice is, and then try to play a whole solo where you don't really go much above or below that. How do you keep it interesting? The difference with playing versus talking is that in this case, you have all these other voices available to you as well that are higher, brighter, and you can access them musically and not just because you're stuck. That's my take on registration and how to use it on the guitar.